Brought to you by Charity Mobile. Support life with every call and text when you switch your cell phone service. Use promo code TRADITION at CharityMobile.com for a special Christmas offer now through February 2nd.
The Vatican recently issued a document on monogamy, and it extolled marriage mostly on the grounds of the unitive nature and mutual good of the man and the woman. It did reaffirm the natural nature of marriage, man and woman, but what it did do was really focus almost exclusively on the unitive nature, leaving a lot of the procreation and things out of the equation. The document has since been really just hammered by even some of the biggest defenders of modern popes, those who really look askance at those of us who are not exactly the biggest fans of Leo XIV or his predecessor. They call the document nearly useless because of just how ambiguous and wordy it is. So I thought this would be a perfect time to return to the document of Leo XIII that we've been working on about once or twice a month for the last several months, and that is his encyclical ARCANUM, which is his encyclical on matrimony. So, here is Leo XIII's response to the work of his successor. From the beginning of the world, indeed it was divinely ordained that things instituted by God and by nature should be proved by us to be the more profitable and salutary the more they remain unchanged in their full integrity. For God, the maker of all things, well knowing what was good for the institution and preservation of each of his creatures, so ordered them by his will and mind that each might adequately attain the end for which it was made. If the rashness or the wickedness of human agency venture to change or disturb that order of things which has been constituted with fullest foresight, then the designs of infinite wisdom and usefulness begin either to be hurtful or cease to be profitable, partly because through the change undergone they have lost their power of benefiting, partly because God chooses to inflict punishment on the pride and audacity of man. Now, those who deny that marriage is holy, and who relegate it, stripped of all holiness, among the class of common secular things, uproot thereby the foundations of nature, not only resisting the designs of providence, but, so far as they can, destroying the order that God has ordained. No one, therefore, should wonder if from such insane and impious attempts there spring up a crop of evils pernicious in the highest degree, both to the salvation of souls and to the safety of the commonwealth. If then we consider the end of the divine institution of marriage, we shall see very clearly that God intended it to be a most fruitful source of individual benefit and of public welfare. Not only in strict truth was marriage instituted for the propagation of the human race, but also that the lives of husbands and wives might be made better and happier. This comes about in many ways, by their lightening each other's burdens through mutual help, by constant and faithful love, by having all their possessions in common, and by the heavenly grace which flows from the sacrament. Marriage also can do much for the good of families, for so long as it is conformable to nature and in accordance with the counsels of God, it has power to strengthen union of heart in the parents, to secure the holy education of children, to temper the authority of the father by the example of the divine authority, to render children obedient to their parents, and servants obedient to their masters. From such marriages as these, the state may rightly expect a race of citizens, animated by a good spirit and filled with reverence and love for God, recognizing it their duty to obey those who rule justly and lawfully, to love all and to injure no one. These many and glorious fruits were ever the product of marriage, so long as it retained these gifts of holiness, unity, and indissolubility, from which proceeded all its fertile and saving power. Nor can anyone doubt but that it would always have brought forth such fruits, at all times and in all places, had it been under the power and guardianship of the Church, the trustworthy preserver and protector of these gifts. But now there is a spreading wish to supplant natural and divine law by human law, and hence has begun a gradual extinction of that most excellent ideal of marriage, which nature herself had impressed on the soul of man, and sealed as it were with her own seal. Nay, more, even in Christian marriages, this power, productive of so great good, has been weakened by the sinfulness of man. Of what advantage is it if a state can institute nuptials estranged from the Christian religion, which is the mother of all good, cherishing all sublime virtues, quickening and urging us to everything that is the glory of a lofty and generous soul? When the Christian religion is reflected and repudiated, marriage sinks of necessity into the slavery of man's vicious nature and vile passions, and finds but little protection in the help of natural goodness. A very torrent of evil has flowed from this source, not only into private families, but also into states. For the salutary fear of God being removed, and there being no longer that refreshment in toil, which is nowhere more abounding than in the Christian religion, it very often happens, as indeed is natural, that the mutual services and duties of marriage seem almost unbearable, and thus very many yearn for the loosening of the tie which they believe to be woven by human law and of their own will, whenever incompatibility of temper, or quarrels, or the violation of the marriage vow, or mutual consent, or other reasons induce them to think that it would be well to be set free. Then, if they are hindered by law from carrying out this shameless desire, they contend that the laws are iniquitous, inhuman, and at variance with the rights of free citizens, adding that every effort should be made to repeal such enactments and to introduce a more humane code sanctioning divorce. Now, however, much the legislator of our days may wish to guard themselves against the impiety of men, such as we have been speaking of, they are unable to do so, seeing that they profess to hold and defend the very same principles of jurisprudence, and hence they have to go with times and render divorce easily obtainable. History itself shows this, for to pass over other instances, we find that at the very close of the last century, divorces were sanctioned by law in that upheaval, or rather, as it might be called, conflagration in France, when society was wholly degraded by the abandoning of God. Many at the present time would fain have those laws reenacted, because they wish God and his church to be altogether exiled and excluded from the midst of human society, madly thinking that in such laws a final remedy must be sought for that moral corruption which is advancing with rapid strides. Truly, it is hardly possible to describe how great are the evils that flow from divorce. Matrimonial contracts are by it made variable. Mutual kindness is weakened. Deplorable inducements to unfaithfulness are supplied. Harm is done to the education and training of children. Occasion is afforded for the breaking up of homes. The seeds of dissension are sown among families. The dignity of womanhood is lessened and brought low, and women run the risk of being deserted after having ministered to the pleasures of men. Since then, nothing has such power to lay waste families and destroy the mainstay of kingdoms as the corruption of morals. It is easily seen that divorces are in the highest degree hostile to the prosperity of families and states, springing as they do from the depraved morals of the people, and as experience shows us, opening out a way to every kind of evil doing in public and in private life. Pope Leo XIII goes on from there, and we will revisit this in the near future. You'll note, though, that paragraph, that we started with, which was paragraph 25, it's about halfway through the entire document. He talks about the ends of marriage, and he orders them first and foremost as, of course, the begetting of children, and then the mutual good of the spouses, and he begins to list the various forms that takes. But then he goes from there to the good it does society. And he does so in unambiguous, clear language. Yes, it's written at a higher literary level than many of us are used to, because, as you might have known or noticed, for all of our universal literacy we have today, it seems that illiteracy reigns and rules the day. The average reading level of the typical person in the West now seems to be about 7th grade. They can't even handle the New York Times, which is written at a 12th grade reading level. Not that there's anything good to read there, but still, it used to be that those who were literate were truly literate. Something has happened. Be that as it may, though, the document was written with clarity. And nobody would say ARCANUM was a useless document, not fit for the purpose it was published, due to its clumsiness and all sorts of other critiques like we saw with Leo's new document. I'm very curious what you think of this, so let me know in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It certainly helps. Sharing this on social media helps as well. And always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.